When it comes to Britain threatening to leave the European Union, a lot of people seem prepared to put up a fight.
La France souhaite que la Grande-Bretagne reste dans l'Union européenne.
I'm quite sure that we'll have a deal, not a compromise, a solution.
At the same time, I will do everything in my power to find a satisfactory solution also for the British side.
The main reason European leaders want to save Britain's seat in Brussels Parliament is their common interests, and those interests could be harmed by a so-called Brexit. But people campaigning to leave the Bloc argue Britain would then be free to establish its own trade agreements with the rest of the world, instead of having to follow rules imposed by Brussels. Britain has a history of disagreement with the Bloc. In 1975, the UK held a referendum to decide whether it would stay in the European Economic Community, the predecessor to the EU. People were unhappy with the costs and constraints imposed by EEC rules, but 67% of Britons voted to stay in the Bloc. Today it's Prime Minister David Cameron's turn. He's demanding change to remain in the Bloc.
I would like to secure the future of Britain in a reformed European Union.
Cameron has demanded that the EU stop discriminating against countries that don't use the euro as their currency. He says Britain needs to be exempt from Euro's commitment to what's known as an ever closer union. Conservatives see that as a threat to national sovereignty. And the Prime Minister wants to limit the rights of immigrants from the EU, and the country plans to deport refugees who can't pass an English language exam. Cameron's promised to hold a referendum on a Brexit by the end of 2017. He says an agreement will allow Britain to keep its EU benefits while gaining special reforms and privileges.
These things are possible, not just good for Britain, but actually good for Europe.
But things have changed since 1975, and not everyone thinks staying in the European Union is worth it, even with reforms.
I don't just want Britain to leave the European Union, I want Europe to leave the European Union.
And some people believe Cameron's reforms risk Britain losing its European partners.
To deliver change, Mr. Speaker, you need patient, effective diplomacy, and you need to make friends. But
Recent opinion polls suggest that 53% of Britons favour leaving the European Union.
We must get out before the country is ruined altogether.
Many others are far from sure.
Now, the idea that that might not exist in the future through some kind of closing of borders is absolutely horrifying.
Talk about horror and ruin and a clock that's ticking towards a deadline in 2017. Politicians have a lot of work ahead of them.